How long were you adjunct here after you quit?
Well, from 82
We have
to
20 minutes.
2008.
Okay. So I think we're ready to start. Are you ready to start? Okay, Reverend Sid Johnson, I'm going to start with this question. How would you like to be remembered?
I think I would like people to think I was not only interested in them, but cared about them. And often that meant sharing the problems or whatever that they were going through in their personal lives while they were attending classes here.
Okay.
And that, well, it comes back every once in a while. I hear things from former students, or this last Saturday, something from a mother of a former student. And so I appreciate that maybe they didn't know I cared about them.
Okay. Tell me how you answered that question when I asked you on the phone.
I would rather not be remembered, necessarily. Then it occurred to me, being forgotten is, well, second only to forgiveness.
Is second only to forgiveness? Say more about this.
Well, in forgiveness, it's forgotten, you know, and you go back to zero and start over again. And forgiveness is a wonderful gift we have from God, and sometimes being remembered, people don't remember the things you would like them to remember.
Okay.
And but being forgotten, I think also as a teacher means you get out of the way of what you're teaching. And if you believe what you're teaching is important, then sometimes it's best not to get in the way.
I remember that about you. And I remember you saying that at the time even too, that the material takes precedence. If you forget me, that's fine, but I want you to remember this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An interesting thing happened somewhere after I'd taught 6, 7, 8 years, something like that, and was pretty comfortable with the material. I began to think about the teaching process, and in thinking of what I had experienced in my days as a student, I realized that there were some teachers whom I remember very well and who made a difference in my life. I'm here today because of one of those teachers. And so I remember them very clearly. On the other hand, there are teachers I had who influenced me profoundly and taught me so much and changed the course of my learning and even understanding what learning was. But I can't for the life of me remember their names. And so I was asking myself as I was trying to decide what kind of teacher to be. Do I want to be one of those that people remember but can't remember what they taught, or remember what they taught but not necessarily remember them?
Yeah.
So when I said, I'm not sure I want to be remembered, I would hope that they're living with things that I may have given them or shared with them.
Okay.
So.
Okay, good. Can we scroll back a little bit and start younger? Tell me about childhood. I am interested. What was the spiritual life like of your childhood?
My first recollection is moving to the Texas Panhandle. My dad had been working in a defense plant in Fort Worth, Dallas area. And so as the war came to a close, we moved up to the Panhandle. And my family started going to church. And I don't remember our going to church when we were living further south. And I remember going to Sunday school. And I remember those leaflets we got every Sunday with a color print on the cover illustrating the story. But what I remember even more is that every morning as my sister and I ate our breakfast our mother would read to us from this children's Bible published by Concordia Publishing House, read a biblical story. And those stories became really precious to me, and I remembered them. And I often, from the pulpit, refer to our mother reading to us and what that meant to us, because she became a parochial school teacher.
Oh.
So we both went into church work.
So we're talking about you started attending a Lutheran church?
Church, yes,
Yeah, okay.
because once we were in the Panhandle, we were back with my mother's extended family, and they
Okay.
all went to the Lutheran church.
Okay.
And so it became a social thing as well as a religious thing. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed, like I said, Sunday school and then those breakfast readings. Then we got a new pastor, Pastor Martin, and he had a hobby of working with leather. And he would make belts and billfolds and that kind of thing. And he did that with us, with the boys who were at Vacation Bible School. And I thought that was really neat that he did something, besides stand up in the pulpit. And then he taught me. I was a confirmation class of one. So we spent a lot of time together in his office in the parsonage. And I learned so much and found much of it, not only interesting but exciting. And he's the one who suggested to my mother that there was this college down in Austin, or high school and college, and might be interested in sending me there. And he gave her a catalog, and I thought, well, that would be interesting. And then it so happened that year, after I graduated from the 8th grade, we were moving back down to West Texas, and so I was leaving my friends, and it made it extra easy to change schools, and so I went off to Austin and went through the system. And so that was my early, so it was bound up with my life.
Okay.
It wasn't just a thing that was separate or a category within my life. They were just kind of intermixed.
Was Austin high school, or was it a junior college? Or
Both.
it was, okay.
Yeah.
So you were there then 6 years?
6 years.
Oh my
yes.
gosh.
Mhm.
Okay.
And so, and that's kind of always the way it's been. I haven't really categorized it as something separate. It's just a part of my life.
Okay.
And I'm kind of glad it's that way.
So what was your journey into teaching here at Concordia? What brought you here?
Well,
And what did you teach?
let me go back to Austin.
Okay.
At the end of 6 years, I wasn't really sure I wanted to continue in the Concordia system.
Okay.
And I was considering going to University of Texas and study journalism, because our English teacher had taught me that, well, he said I had an ability to write. So I thought, well, maybe that's the way to take it. And one day in May, just a couple of weeks before school was out, I was walking across campus, and this teacher, Alfred Leja was his name, came walking along, and he stopped, and he said, "I hear you're going to the University of Texas next year." And I told him about the idea of journalism. He said, "Well, I really think you should continue in this system." And I don't remember anything else he said, but it changed my mind. It was about a 3 or 4 minute conversation, and so it changed the direction of my life.
Because then you didn't go there.
No, I went on in senior college. We were the second class through that.
In Austin?
No, senior college in Fort Wayne.
In Fort Wayne, okay.
And, then I just followed the rest of the system but I was always profoundly influenced by the teachers I had at Austin. And back then, most of those teachers were also ministers. And so I thought, well, I would really like to teach at a place like Concordia, Austin. And it looked to me like you had to become a pastor first to become a teacher. And so I followed the pastoral route, and ended up here. Well, yeah, and I ended up here because the year I was graduating, there were two, and I had been working on my English degree at Washington University, which is not far from the seminary. And now I can't remember where I was. but
We're at the
entertainment.
seminary. No, that's okay.
Yeah,
We're at the
and
seminary
So I wanted to be a teacher.
and the English path. So
Yeah, and
I'm guessing
I
that's
needed
where.
to pick up the English, right. And
Yeah.
so I was working on my master's at Washington University while attending the seminary. And at the end of the year, a man named Harry Coroner, who was in charge of distributing calls and that, called me into the office, as he did all of us. He said, well, I have two possibilities. You can go to Concordia, Milwaukee for a year during someone's sabbatical, or you can go out to Oregon and teach there. I said, well, I'll take Milwaukee.
Whoa, you picked the wrong one? You picked Milwaukee?
Because who's heard of Oregon? You know? And Harry Corner said, well, I was out there last summer, and I've got to tell you this. That is a beautiful country. Everything looks like it's going to kill itself from trying to grow so much. And I said, well, that sounds interesting. And so I told him, well, go ahead and give me the call to Oregon. I checked with my fiance, who was in Buffalo, New York, and she was graduating too that year. So we honeymooned across country, and that's how we ended up here.
Oh my gosh. Okay, and that was 1964.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I have to say, of all the professors here at Concordia, we called you all, it was Dr. Wallers, but everybody else was Mr. And you were Mr. Johnson, and you were the one that none of us would have even guessed was ordained. And I'm wondering if you can maybe enlighten me about that, because I've been thinking how you were Mr. Johnson, and you were hip, and you were cool, and you were wicked funny. And none of those categories fit what we figured a clergy person would be, or a person of faith, of, you know, the upstanding Christian faith faculty member. And can you explain, how did you get to be so funny? And you didn't even try to be hip. And you wouldn't have been if you'd been trying.
Well, you know, it could be because I really did like writing. And while I was at the Sim, I wrote a couple of their quad shows. It was something they did each spring. It was kind of like, you know, on any college show. And both of them had to deal with, well, the first one, a vicar from the city ended up in the country, and the vicar from the country and it's ended up in the city. It's kind of like the old Feldmaus, Stadtmaus story of the Germans. And then the last one is about all 12 years. They're kind of reviewing, going through those 12 years. And that was very rewarding to me. I think it eventually kind of transferred over to doing sermons and the writing part, because I still really like writing sermons, and just finished a vacancy, and we'll miss those sermons. So I don't know.
You didn't find any contradiction between being an ordained man of the Missouri Synod and being hilarious, creative, witty, funny in your real actual life? Did you ever get in trouble?
Yeah.
Oh, can I hear about that?
Well, for that last quad show, they wanted to publicize it, so they came down to one of our Saturday morning rehearsals and took a picture of us in dance poses. And I think 4 or 5 of us were wearing Bermuda shorts, and that got put in that newspaper. And a letter came back, you know, it's disgraceful that these seminary students are wearing Bermuda shorts. I think that's the only time I got into trouble. But I guess, to me, being a Christian, or even a Christian leader of some kind, is a very joy-filled thing. And I guess what you just said, I never thought of myself.
Yeah, you were unaware, I think.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because you have actually been gone from Concordia one of the longest amounts of time. And yet, in my generation, we remember you as strongly as we remember any of the other faculty. So that ruined your whole "you don't want to be remembered" theory, because there you go, you failed. Okay, so I want to go back to Concordia later, but while we're on this thread, I have a question, which is, when you left Concordia, and we were aware of you leaving Concordia, you were one of the golden age faculty. You were one of the first to leave. And there were some of us who actually grieved that. We thought, what a waste. What a pity that creativity, that wit, that life is going to be squandered on congregations and not put to good use in the academic world anymore. There are some of us who are kind of miffed with you for abandoning, academia for congregational life. All these years later, would you like to respond to that, especially with hindsight, what your life was like in your next career?
Well, some of the faculty members kind of said the same thing,
Yeah.
too, particularly those who were teaching humanities. We were team teaching.
Yeah.
And I was surprised. I just didn't think I would be much missed. And the only reason I took that call, the major reason, is that it was a congregation that was hurting. And they had been through some bad experiences and trials. And I had done a vicarage there. Someone came and asked, and Dick Reinish had given them my name. I figured he was trying to get rid of me, so that's why. At any rate, they ended up giving me the call. I had started the 1st of January in '82, and then in March they extended the call. And that was very difficult, consulting family and all of that. But those people were hurting so much, and that's really the reason that kind of moved me in that direction.
You felt genuinely called?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Called to a different place. And it was different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much. And some of the things that you were talking about, I think I brought there. Didn't give up the humor, and tried to be kind of a happy-go-lucky person, because everything had been kind of grim, there for a while. This often happens when congregation has problems. And, but I never felt missed, really, because I was teaching, as adjunct, so I'm still in contact.
Okay, so there was still this link, this thread.
Yeah.
And you never regretted the shift? Major regret?
No,
Wow.
not really. Because I love those people, and they loved me, and it's hard to turn your back on that.
Yeah.
And the congregation did change over the years, and there's still a sense of joy in that congregation.
Okay, I was going to ask how it changed. For the better, more life,
Yeah.
more joy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and remember a couple of people telling me, used to, when we had the congregational meetings, they were knockdown, drag-out fights. But one said, since you've been here, there's been none of that anymore. So maybe it rubs off. But, but I guess I mainly just thought of being myself.
I was just going to say that it's who you are that you are taking into the situation.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't go in with the preconceived notion of how a pastor should behave. Probably that's not necessarily a good thing to say, but.
I think that's great. Okay, we're going to take a break. Change